rewritten for full length. Hey guys, tonight we're going to rise before the sun. Not in your usual, groggy, alarm blaring kind of way, but quietly, gently, with a hush of pre-dawn drifting through the cracks in a mud brick wall, and the faint rustling of linen as you shift under a thin blanket, because tonight you're not lying in your modern bed. You're waking up in ancient Egypt as a farmer along the banks of the Nile. Your name doesn't matter, not here. Here you're one of many part of a village that existed before clocks, before electric light, before toothbrushes or sugar or shoes. You stretch slowly. Your limbs ache from yesterday's labor, and the floor is cold beneath your mat. But the air, it's still, soft, the kind of stillness that carries only the distant call of early birds and the muffled plop of frogs somewhere in the reeds. A rooster crows faint and sleepy. You breathe in the earthy scent of packed clay ash and morning air that still remembers the river's coolness. You rise without waking your family. Your wife lies nearby, curled around the baby. Your eldest son is sprawled awkwardly, one leg dangling off his mat, breathing deeply. You smile briefly, then step outside, careful not to nudge the water jug with your foot. Outside, the world is wrapped in soft blue shadow. The horizon is a dark smear behind the palms. You see stars faint now, giving way to something gentler. This is the hour before the gods have fully woken. The hour where breath hangs in the air and each footstep feels like a whisper. You begin your walk to the field. It's not far, maybe 100 paces, but you take your time. You greet the fig tree that leans just outside your doorway. You pass the corner where your neighbor's goat always sleeps. You note the new boot print in the dirt near the water trough. Someone was up late. The Nile is nearby, though you can't see it just yet. You hear her. She murmurs like a content old woman. Her voice is everywhere in this village, in your grain, in your body, in your dreams. You carry a simple wooden hoe over your shoulder. Its handle is polished, smooth from use. The blade is stone, tied with reed and care. You know its weight, like you know the sound of your wife's footsteps. It has been with you for years. It will be with your son after you're gone. Your field is waiting. It's not grand, just a few rectangular patches of dark, fertile earth nestled between two irrigation ditches. The soil is black, rich with silt deposited during the last flood. It smells alive. You kneel and press your hand to it. Cool, damp, promising. You nod to yourself, then stand and begin the day's first task, checking the furrows. You walk the rows in silence, toes curling into dirt, eyes scanning the seedlings. A few weeds have crept in overnight. You crouch, pinch them at the root, toss them aside. A cluster of ants scurries across a broken stalk. You let them be. You've always believed that small creatures have their gods too. From across the field you hear your neighbor's son calling out. His voice cracks mid-sentence, a child turning into a man. You wave without looking up and he calls a greeting back. Somewhere farther off, an old woman begins to sing a threshing song, slow and rhythmic, passed down for who knows how many generations. The tune wraps around you like morning mist. The sky begins to shift. First a pale stripe of silver, then gold, licking the tops of the palms. Ross stirs behind the horizon, readying his boat for the journey across the heavens. You pause and face east. You do not kneel. You're not a priest. but you bow your head just slightly, a nod of respect, not worship but gratitude. The sun is not your God, but it is your warmth, your light, your certainty that another day has come. Historians still debate just how much spiritual life infused the daily routine of the average farmer. Were the rituals performative or heartfelt? Was Ra a name on the tongue or a fire in the heart? But those are questions for people with time to debate. You don't worship because of theology. You acknowledge because you live by it. No sun, no crops. No crops, no family. No family. You don't finish that thought, you get back to work. The hoe digs into the soil with a sound like breath. Not a strike, but a press. You move steadily up the row down again. Sometimes you hum, sometimes you don't. The dirt yields beneath your effort. You check the channels, adjusting small stones where water has pooled too long. You whisper to the barley as you pass. You call it by the names your father taught you. Little bones child of silt, green tooth of the field. These aren't spells. Not exactly. But they aren't nothing. You've been doing this your entire life. Not because you were told to, but because it's what was left for you. And in time it became something more than duty. It became rhythm, purpose, reassurance. Now the light is stronger. The mist has burned off. You see the reeds swaying near the canal and the air hums with insects just waking up. You hear the slap of bare feet as your eldest son comes trotting down the path, carrying a clay bowl. Breakfast. You set your hoe against a post and sit beneath the shade of a tamarisk tree, letting your back ease against its knotted trunk. Your son hands you the bowl. Barley porridge, still steaming, lightly sweetened with date syrup. A wedge of goat cheese. A small cup of weak beer. The taste is plain earthy. Exactly what you need. As you eat, you think about the day ahead. You'll repair a leaking furrow, rebind a cracked bucket, maybe harvest the papyrus near the edge for your daughter's writing practice. You don't rush the thought, you just let it come, like water, like sun, like breath. This is life. This is the beginning of a day in the life of a Nile farmer, mid-morning meals, and the philosophy of barley. You finish your breakfast slowly savoring each bite, not because it's extravagant, far from it, but because it reminds you that you've done enough to earn it. The porridge clings to the bowl, thick and grainy. Your fingers scoop the last of it, and you scrape them clean against the rim. No morsel wasted. The beer is sour, but smooth, more like liquid bread than drink. It fills your belly with warmth and calm. Your son sits cross-legged beside you now, chewing on a crust of bread. He doesn't speak, just watches the ants near his feet carry a leaf fragment together, struggling but determined. You're content to sit in silence with him. Words, after all, are often the most expensive part of a morning. After a while, he rises and runs back toward home, carrying the empty bowl over his head like a ceremonial offering. You watch him go. His bare feet kick up puffs of dust, and his shadow stretches long behind him. He'll return soon, probably with questions about how far frogs can jump or why birds sing when it's hot. That's fine. There will be time. You wipe your hands on a bit of old cloth tucked into your belt and stand again. The sun has shifted higher. The light is no longer soft. It's alive, bouncing off the clay, beating against the field, casting sharp, clean shadows. You squint against it, adjusting your linen wrap around your neck. The breeze has slackened, but the air still carries the scent of water from the canal. You turn toward the barley and return to work. Each row is familiar, not just from yesterday or last week, but from years of tending, learning, listening. You know, which stalks grew a little crooked last season, which furrow holds moisture longer, which corner needs extra care during dry months. The land once mysterious is now like family, sometimes stubborn, always honest. You bend low, checking the base of the stalks. Some lean too far, so you adjust their roots. Others are already sprouting too close together. You thin them, gently murmuring an apology to the weaker plants. Your fingers move without hesitation, trained by repetition and consequence. The trick is not to think of barley as crop, but as relationship. You feed it, and it feeds you. You respect it, and it won't abandon you in a dry season. Historians have analyzed Egyptian agriculture through the lens of production. How many liters of grain per hectare, how often it was taxed, how frequently it failed. But few of them talk about what it feels like to lean into your field and smell the green, to run your hands along the fine hairs of barley leaves, and know without a word from a priest or a scribe that the land approves of your efforts. You move down a furrow, dragging your hoe to stir the soil. A toad leaps out from beneath a clump of grass, and you jump, startled. Then you chuckle. Toads mean moisture. Moisture means life. You let it go on its way, a tiny god disguised in mud. The sky is a deeper blue now, the kind that makes you think of pottery glaze. You look up briefly, watching a heron coast overhead on long, slow wings. Then you return to the work. You clear a patch of stubborn weeds and find a smooth stone beneath the surface. It fits neatly in your palm, and for a moment you're tempted to keep it. It reminds you of the one your father gave you when you were a boy, said it was lucky. You turn it over in your hand, admiring the tiny flecks of quartz, then place it beside a young stalk. Maybe this one could use the luck more than you. Nearby, a neighbor waves. He's bringing his own lunch into the field, a handful of dates and 2 onions tied in cloth. You exchange nods, and he trudges toward his corner of the world. No one calls this a community meeting, but that's what it is. Eyebrows raised in shared amusement, silent greetings across shared soil. As you kneel again to tend a shallow canal trench, a familiar voice rises from across the field, an elder singing. The words are old, so old they're more sound than meaning, but the melody is soothing. It rises and falls, like the Nile herself. You find your rhythm in it. You remember your grandfather singing that tune when he taught you how to sow barley. The seed won't grow if it thinks you're in a hurry, he told you. At the time you laughed. Now you believe him. Your knees ache. The sun weighs heavier on your back. You pause to stretch your shadow long and curled at your feet. In the distance, a child laughs, the high-pitched sound of someone chasing a goose, probably. You smile. The goose always wins. You reach for your water gourd and take a slow sip. The clay has kept it cool. You pour a little on your hands, washing away dust and sweat, watching the droplets sink into the soil. A gift given back. Then just as you are about to return to the work, a breeze stirs again. Faint, but refreshing. It lifts the smell of earth and barley into the air like incense. You close your eyes and breathe it in. This is mid-morning in the life of a Nile farmer, not glorious, not celebrated, but full. Each moment a thread in a quiet, woven rhythm that stretches back generations. And so you bend again, not in exhaustion, but in devotion, and press your hands to the soil. Noon heat and the quiet trials of the land. The sun has begun its descent, but the air is still thick with heat, and every surface radiates the morning's memory. You feel it especially in your shoulders, your neck, your knees. It's not the sharp pain of injury, just the slow ache of consistency of having bent and lifted, stepped, and squatted every day of your life. Your shirt clings to your back, damp and scratchy. You shift your linen wrap and wipe the sweat from your brow with the back of your hand. It leaves a dark smear of dust and salt. You don't bother brushing it away. It's just part of the day now. The sky above is a white, hot canvas, empty of clouds. Even the birds have gone quiet. You stand for a moment, letting the silence settle over you like a second skin. The barley field ripples in slow motion, the breeze too lazy to stir it with any conviction. In the distance, the canal gurgles on unconcerned. Now is the time most villagers retreat into their homes, resting on reed mats, waiting for the air to turn from punishment back into gift. But you stay in the field. There's still something that needs doing. There always is. You move toward the boundary where your land ends and your neighbor's begins. A narrow stone wall marks the line barely knee-high, but enough to remind everyone of what belongs to whom. You sit on it carefully, feeling the heat rise through the stone and into your bones. You reach down to examine the base of the wall. Some of the mortar has started to crumble. You press the loosened edge gently, wondering how long before the wall fails. It wouldn't take much. A flood, a careless donkey, a group of children running too hard. Then what you'd rebuild, of course, but not today. You note it for later. A faint sound reaches your ears. The squeal of a wooden wheel, the steady rhythm of hooves on dirt. A cart is coming down the main road. You rise, brush your tunic, and walk up to the edge of the field to see. It's the temple steward making his rounds with 2 assistants. They stop at each household not to collect, but to observe. They note the color of the grain, the level of water in the ditches, the slope of the field walls. Their scrolls are filled with symbols, meaningless to you, but important to someone in a chamber far away. You nod in greeting as they pass. One of the assistants returns the gesture, his eyes squinting beneath a stiff, white head wrap. No words are exchanged. There's no need. Historians often speak of these stewards as record keepers, bureaucrats, numbers men. But to you, they are part of the cycle watchers of a world too big to touch directly. Their scrolls cannot feel the sunburn on your neck, but their ink decides how much you'll owe come harvest. It's a strange sort of power. You return to your wall and sit again, letting the heat press against your spine. From here, you can see the full stretch of your field. It's not large. You couldn't feed a city with it, but it's yours, or as much yours as anything ever is in a land where kings speak for gods. You think of your father and his father before him, of how they stood here too, staring out at the same dirt, wondering if the season would be kind. You remember how your father taught you to test soil between your fingers, how to watch the sky for changes in wind, how to sense the mood of the Nile by the way frogs sing at night. He never called it science. He never needed to. You shift your weight and rise again. The clay path beneath your feet is cracked and warm. You walk back toward the house, checking the irrigation ditches along the way. One of them has started to dry too fast. You adjust a reed gate, let a little more water through. The canal will give if you ask politely. As you near the courtyard, the smell of onions and crushed garlic meets you halfway. Lunch. You step into the shade and your wife hands you a bowl. You take it gratefully and sit beneath the fig tree. The stew is simple onions. Herbs, a bit of goat meat if you're lucky, lentils if you're not. Today it's lentils. Still, the flavor comforts you. The warmth fills the hollow space the sun left behind. Your son joins you, pulling a small mat across the ground. He eats with his fingers, silent at first, then telling you how he chased a lizard up the granary wall. Your daughter arrives with a handful of figs, sweet and sticky, and your wife shoos away a curious chicken that's wandered too close. You eat slowly. There is no hurry. The afternoon is long. Historians might struggle to find the significance in this scene. No monuments, no declarations. But for you, this is where the real story lives. In the steam rising from the bowl, in the shadow of the fig leaves, shifting gently across your wife's cheek, in the small hand that reaches over to steal a fig, and the giggle that follows. After the meal, you stretch out in the shade and close your eyes for a moment. Just a moment. The sun is still too high to return to the field, and your body, grateful for food and stillness, begins to soften. You doze lightly, not quite asleep, not quite awake. In this half-dream, you see the Nile running backward, barley growing from clouds, frogs singing in human voices. You smile in your sleep, and when you wake, the day has tilted. The air feels different. The sun, though still hot, has lost its bite. The village begins to stir again. You sit up slowly, joints cracking, and brush the dust from your tunic. The afternoon work awaits. But for a brief, quiet moment, the earth holds you, and you let it. The afternoon returned to labor. The sun has shifted just slightly, but enough to feel. The intensity of midday has softened into something more manageable, though the air still holds heat like stone from a long-forgotten fire. You rise from the shade, shake off sleep, and stretch your arms overhead. Your shoulder cracks once, then twice. That's how you know you've rested just enough, but no more. The tools wait for you near the wall. You grab your hoe again, your water gourd, and a small bundle of reeds you've been saving to reinforce the fence around the goat enclosure. These aren't glamorous jobs, but they're the kinds of tasks that, if ignored, have a way of multiplying splinters that become breaks, leaks that become floods, animals that become escape artists. As you step out toward the fields once more, you notice how the light has changed. The shadows are longer now, pulling across the packed earth like sleeping serpents. The fig tree near your neighbor's house casts a silhouette that reaches almost to your doorstep. You adjust your head wrap and begin walking. The canal murmurs steadily as you pass. A few ducks float idly along the surface, and a heron perches like a statue atop a worn wooden post.
You glance at the water's level. It's lower than you like, but still flowing. That's enough for today. When you reach the edge of your field, you pause, inhaling deeply. The air carries the scent of earth and barley, cut grass and warm clay. The stalks sway in gentle movements, like a crowd murmuring just beneath their breath. You feel it, life continuing even without fanfare. Your first task is to fix a leaning irrigation gate.
Earlier this morning, you noticed it beginning to wobble, and now it's worse. You kneel beside the stone channel, dig out the crumbled soil, and replant the wooden slats deeper into the ground. You pack the dirt firmly around them, using a flat rock to press it down. You wedge a large pebble beneath one side to correct the tilt. It's not beautiful, but it works. You splash a bit of water over your hands and wipe them dry on your tunic. A dog barks somewhere nearby, followed by the clatter of pottery and a child's startled squeal. Village life is never truly silent. You move to a section of the field where the barley is thinner. You kneel and begin clearing weeds, pulling them up by the root, tossing them into a pile for drying. Some will be used to patch the goat hut. Others may become kindling. Nothing is wasted here. Even what grows where it shouldn't has its purpose.
As you work, your son approaches again, holding something behind his back. You arch an eyebrow. He grins, then reveals a frog, cupped carefully in his palms. For the goddess, he says, with mock solemnity. You laugh genuinely and gesture for him to release it gently into the canal. He does, watching it paddle away with reverence, usually reserved for temple visits. You pat his head. He beams, then races off to find another offering. Historians often overlook this kind of moment.
They study the temple processions, the royal decrees, the astronomical alignments. But what about the boy who believes a frog can make the rain come faster? What about the farmer who thanks a weed for reminding him to be thorough? You return to your task, working steadily. Sweat pools along your brow again, but it's no longer oppressive. The afternoon has entered that golden space where work feels purposeful rather than punishing. You check each furrow. You smooth a collapsing mound. You reroute a trickle of water with a flick of your wrist and a careful footstep. At one point, you stand and stretch your back, looking out across the neighboring plots. You see other farmers doing the same, bent over, in a silent choreography, tending their corners of the world. It's not coordinated. It doesn't need to be. It just is. A neighbor calls out. He's struggling to lift a large water jug onto a low cart. You walk over, lend your strength. Between the two of you, it moves easily. He nods and thanks. You nod back. The exchange is wordless but not empty. It's how things have always been. You return to your field just in time to see your daughter skipping down the path with a small clay bowl. Mama says to drink, she announces, holding the bowl up to you like an offering. You crouch, take the bowl, and sip slowly. The water is slightly warm but clean and sweetened with a touch of tamarind. You drain it gratefully and hand the bowl back. She runs off her braid, bouncing behind her. You finish reinforcing the gate and rake the weed pile into a bundle. You tie it with twine and set it aside near the canal path for collection. The sun dips lower still, casting a deep orange glow across the field. Before heading home, you do one last slow walk.
from one end of the field to the other. You check for anything out of place, a disturbed furrow, an insect trail, a loose stone. Everything seems in order.
You pause at the far edge and look back. It's not a spectacular sight, just rows of green dark earth, a few scattered tools. But it is your labor made visible. And in that visibility it becomes something more than toil. It becomes proof. You were here, you did something. You tended a piece of the world and left it better than you found it. You kneel once more, press your hand flat against the soil, and whisper thanks to Ra, to Happy, to your father's memory, to the gods of roots and water and sweat. Then you stand, sling your hoe across your back, and begin the walk home. Evening rituals and the language of shadows. The sky begins to bleed into color as you make your way back toward the village first. Gold, then coral, and finally a deepening blue that swallows, outlines, and softens every edge. The harsh sun no longer beats down from above. Instead, it lingers just over the rooftops, warm but merciful. The shadows grow longer, stretching like sleepy cats across the path. It's the hour when the earth exhales. Your feet find their rhythm on the hardened clay path that leads between fields and fences, past cooking fires and whispering families. Every home has its scent: onions simmering, lentils steaming, bread cooling on stone slabs. It's not hunger yet, just anticipation, the kind that makes the heart lean forward. At your house, your wife is already in motion. You see her silhouette near the oven, fanning the coals, arranging pots. The baby is tucked into her arms, sleepy but not yet asleep. Your daughter plucks herbs near the wall, crushing them between her fingers for aroma, before dropping them into the soup. Your eldest son is trimming a broken reed near the goat pen, humming a tune that once annoyed you, but now reminds you of long days and full baskets. You step inside, rinse your hands in a shallow bowl, and sit on a low stool beside the fire. The clay oven radiates warmth, and the scent of coriander and garlic settles into your skin like a blanket. You reach for the basket of bread rounds your wife has set beside you. You take one tiret and hold the warm piece for a moment before eating. Dinner is quiet, not silent, but unhurried. There is no rush here, no appointments, no bells. Just the clink of wooden bowls, the shuffle of sandals, the occasional exhale of a sleepy child. Historians sometimes ask how the Egyptian peasantry endured lives of repetition and hardship without rebellion, without bitterness. But they rarely sit here in this circle where the labor ends and the gratitude begins, where every bite tastes of work well done and the air carries not the weight of duty, but the relief of completion. After the meal, you gather the scraps and toss them into the trough for the goats. One of them bleats softly in approval and you chuckle. The dog, as always, appears from nowhere, hoping for a scrap. You toss him a bit of crust. He catches it midair and trots off like a champion. Your wife begins tidying and you join her. Together you move through the evening like dancers in a familiar routine. You know where every jar belongs, where every bowl should rest. You work in tandem without needing to speak. This too is love. Outside, the light has shifted into indigo. The first stars appear. You light a small oil lamp and place it near the door. Not because you need it, you know you're home blindfolded, but because it's tradition, a beacon, a gentle promise that the darkness is welcome here. You step out into the courtyard and sit beneath the tamarisk tree. It was your father's tree planted when he was a boy. Now it leans slightly, its bark worn smooth from decades of backs resting against it. You lean there now the same way he did, and you look up. The sky above you stretches forever. The stars are clear tonight, undisturbed by clouds or wind. You saw the Egyptian Orion rising above the eastern hills.
You whisper his name under your breath. Not a prayer exactly, just a recognition, a thank you. Your son joins you, curling beside your leg like he used to when he was younger. He doesn't say anything. He just watches the stars, his breath slowing. Your daughter sits on the other side, her hair still damp from the quick rinse she gave herself with a clay jar earlier. The dog lies across the courtyard entrance like a living gate. All is still. This is when the stories begin.
You start with one of the old ones about the barley spirit who lived beneath the fields and only surfaced to speak with children. Your daughter laughs, calling it ridiculous, but her eyes stay wide. Your son, ever the believer, listens with bated breath. You stretch the story out, letting it wander. There's no end in sight. No one needs one. After a while, your wife joins you, bringing a blanket for the children. She wraps them, kisses their heads, then sits beside you with a sigh that speaks of heat and hands and the quiet reward of dusk. Historians sometimes forget that people lived inside history, not just as laborers or footnotes, but as dreamers, as laughers, as storytellers. You are not a chapter in a scroll. You are a father beneath the stars, inventing spirits and teaching reverence in the same breath. Your son points out a moving light in the sky, probably a firefly.
But you say it's a wandering god looking for a place to rest. He nods solemnly. Your daughter rolls her eyes. The world is big enough for both. As the night deepens, you gather the children and guide them inside. They protest sleep, but you hush them with soft words and the promise of another story tomorrow. You settle them on their mats, cover them, and lower the lamp. Your wife lingers by the doorway, brushing her hair with her fingers, her eyes half closed. You step behind her and wrap your arms around her waist. She leans into you without a word. You both stare into the darkness. Tomorrow there will be work again. Weeds and sun and barley. But for now, in this pause, in this low breath between days, you exist fully. Not a worker, not a record, just a soul resting where it belongs. Night watch and the language of silence. The house settles slowly like sand after a flood. The heat of the day fades into the clay walls, and the faint sounds of frogs croaking down by the canal begin to rise. The air finally has cooled. Not cold, but breathable. Still it carries the scent of char from the cooking fire and the trace musk of resting animals. It is night, but the village does not fall fully asleep. Not all at once. You lie down beside your wife. Her breath already deepening into the long rhythm of sleep. You listen for a moment, tracking the sounds, the soft scuff of a goat repositioning itself in the shed, the distant murmur of men talking near the temple, a baby somewhere crying, once then being soothed. The world does not go silent. It just changes volume. You rise again not because you must, but because this is your ritual. You step outside, careful to avoid the loose stone near the door. The lamp glows behind you, its flickering light casting strange shapes on the wall. You do not need it. The moon is high and the sky is clear. The courtyard is cool now. Your feet touch the packed earth and send a slight chill
through your legs. The tamarisk tree rustles softly, and you glance upward. Stars wheel across the sky, ancient and uncaring. They've seen kings rise and rivers shift, and they'll keep watching long after your name is forgotten. Somehow that comforts you. You grab the wooden staff, leaning against the wall, and begin your walk. Night watch is not your duty, not officially, but it is your choice. You check the edges of your field, the animal enclosures, the canal gates. You do it because the land is quiet now, and in the silence you can hear what it needs. You walk slowly. The path is familiar even in darkness. You pass the neighbor's fence. His goats are quiet tonight. You reach the edge of your field and pause. The barley is ghostly silver in the moonlight, every stalk standing still as if holding its breath. You kneel at the irrigation channel, press your hand to the soil. Still damp. Good. You sit there for a long time, resting your elbows on your knees, breathing evenly. The canal flows steadily behind you, its voice gentler than during the day. You close your eyes and just listen. In this hour, the world feels thinner, closer to the gods, not the loud temple gods of gold and chants, but the smaller ones, the ones who hide in reeds and sit in the shade of amphorae, the ones who know your name and the names of your goats, the ones who listen when you whisper even if you don't ask for anything. You speak aloud softly. Thank you for the water, for the shade, for the barley that didn't rot. It's not a prayer exactly, it's a statement, a record, in case someone is listening. Historians rarely capture this part of a farmer's life. There are no scrolls detailing the number of steps taken on a midnight walk, no carvings of a man thanking the night for its silence. But this is just as much history as the names etched in temple stone. Maybe more. You rise again, stretch your back, and make your way toward the animal pens. The goats are calm, breathing in slow unison. One lifts its head, snorts, and lays it back down. You smile and move on. At the water jars near the side wall, you check the lids. Still in place, the clay is cool to the touch, and the contents slosh gently when you rock them. Nothing broken, nothing spilled. You think briefly of your father again. He used to make this walk too. Sometimes you followed him barefoot and quiet, mimicking every step. He never told you why he walked the perimeter. He didn't need to. Now you do it too. And someday your son might. You return to the center of the courtyard and sit beneath the tamarisk tree once more. The branches overhead form a rough circle through which you can see a single bright star. You don't know its name, but it's always there, always in that same spot when you sit here. You name it in your mind, watcher. You don't tell anyone. It's yours. A dog barks in the distance. Another answers. Then silence again. The frogs continue their choir, and somewhere an owl hoots. Once then disappears into the sky. You lean your head back against the tree and let yourself rest for a moment. Just a moment. Tomorrow there will be so many things. The barley to check, the fence to mend, the bread to bake. The scribes may come with their tablets. A neighbor might ask for help moving his ox cart. The children will fight over something small and forget it by noon. It will all unfold as it always does. But tonight belongs to stillness, to the gentle hum of the earth turning beneath your feet, to the stories that never get told because they are too quiet, too sacred, too ordinary to survive history. You sigh once, not out of frustration, but contentment. Then, with a final glance at the field, you rise and return to the house. You place the staff beside the door, slip back inside. Your wife stirs slightly and moves toward you in her sleep. You lie beside her, the coolness of your skin meeting the warmth of hers. The lamp has burned low now. Only a faint ember glows. You close your eyes. And in the silence that follows you, feel it, the deep breath of the land, the exhale of stars, the calm that comes not from escape, but from belonging. You belong here. You always have. Morning again, and the quiet reset. You wake before the rooster this time, before the frogs go quiet, before the stars fully surrender to dawn. The linen wrap around your shoulders is still warm from sleep, but your feet are already on the ground. The house is silent in the way only early houses can be, not because it's empty, but because everyone inside is still dreaming. You move gently. No need to wake the others. You've done this enough to know which planks creak and which clay jars shift if nudged. You retrieve your tunic from the hook near the door, shake out the dust, and slip it over your head. Outside, the sky is a long breath of gray blue. The air smells of cool earth, old ashes, and the faint sweetness of something blooming nearby. Your dog is already awake, tail thumping against the dirt. He rises and stretches his joints, cracking like twigs, then follows you without being asked. You walk to the canal first. It's instinctual, this check. Not an obligation, no one commands you to do it, but something deeper. You need to see it, to hear it. The water moves slowly today, curling around stones and shadows like silk. You crouch, dip your fingers into the flow, then raise your hand to your lips. Not to drink, but to taste. It tells you things: how high the river is upstream, what sort of silt it's carried overnight, how the day may unfold. Satisfied, you sit beside the canal on the low stone ledge and let yourself be still. The stars are almost gone now, but Sa still lingers, your silent companion from the night before. You nod once, a goodbye perhaps, or just to see you again. The fig tree across the path rustles softly, even though there's no wind. Maybe it's a bird. Maybe it's just the tree itself, stretching. Your mind starts to return to the day ahead. The barley's due for another thinning. A bundle of reeds needs to be soaked before they'll bend without snapping. You promise to help your neighbor check his goat's leg again. He insists it's cursed, but you suspect it's just a thorn. You rise, dust your hands, and head back toward the house. By now, the village is beginning to stir. You hear a pot being set down somewhere. The murmur of early conversation. A child calling out, still tangled in dreams. The rooster, predictably late, finally announces himself with a loud, unashamed cry. Inside, your wife is awake. She greets you with a glance and a quiet gesture toward the hearth, where a pot of water steams gently over the embers. She hums as she stirs barley into the water. The smell is immediate, earthy, warm, slightly bitter. You sit beside her and begin sorting the bundle of reeds you collected yesterday. One by one, you set aside the brittle ones, the split ones, the too short ones. Each movement is slow, unhurried. Your daughter stumbles into the room, next hair-tangled eyes half shut. She makes her way to the hearth, crouches beside her mother, and takes over the stirring without a word. The rhythm continues. No need for instruction. She's seen it enough times. Your son arrives last, breathless, excited. He says he saw a frog with 3 legs hopping near the canal and swears it means something. You nod solemnly. A very rare kind of luck, you say. He beams. Breakfast is ready soon after. Porridge slightly overcooked at the edges, just the way you like it. A handful of dates on the side. A sip of thin beer, warm and flat.
You eat with your fingers tearing bread and dipping it into the bowl. No one talks much. There's no need. After eating, you all step outside. The sky has opened fully now. Light spills over rooftops, touches every pot, every step, every corner. You squint against it and your daughter laughs. "You always do that," she says. You pretend to frown. She laughs harder. You return to the field. The barley sways gently in the morning breeze, its movement reminding you of the way your wife's shawl moves when she dances on festival days. You walk the rows, slowly checking each stalk. You murmur greetings, not out loud, but in your chest. One furrow near the edge has dried too much. You adjust a stone to let water flow back in. It's not a big fix, but it matters. These small adjustments are what keep everything running. Your neighbor arrives a little later. He brings the goat. You crouch and check the leg. No swelling, just a burr lodged deep in the fur. You remove it carefully. He sighs in relief. "I told my wife it wasn't magic," he says. You shrug. "It's still a little magic. You saw it and brought it here." He grins. "Historians might say your day has no real events, no battles, no treaties, no inventions. But they miss the miracle of maintenance, the everyday magic of noticing, of responding, of showing up for a patch of soil, a clump of weeds, a limping goat." By midday, you're back in the courtyard trimming the reeds you selected earlier. Your wife weaves some into a new mat for the baby. Your son builds a small tower from discarded sticks and calls it a granary for ants. Your daughter practices the same song she heard the baker's wife sing yesterday. The air hums with repetition, with return, with presence. The day is only just beginning and already it's full. You look up toward the sun, not to check the time, but to feel it. It warms your cheeks, your hands, the top of your head. You close your eyes and smile. You are home, the sacred ordinary of the afternoon. The afternoon arrives not with a shout, but with a soft settling. The brightness of morning begins to dull, not yet dusk, but no longer sharp. The village hums in its familiar rhythm tools. Clatter voices rise and fall. Like birdsong, the ever-present rustle of reeds and distant water fills the background like breath. You're back at the field again. Not because someone told you to be here, but because the work is never truly done. There's no schedule posted, no boss waiting with a wax tablet and quill. The barley simply needs tending, and the land has no voice but yours. You walk the rows again, this time with your son beside you. He's older now, old enough to help without constant instruction. He watches you closely, mimicking your movements as you kneel, check the stalks, adjust the soil around their roots. You correct him once gently, and he nods, determined to get it right. He's not just learning about barley, he's learning about patience, about the way your hands move without hesitation because they've done this 1,000 times before, about how you speak to the plants without speaking at all. After checking the main field, you lead him to the storage area, a small shaded spot near the canal, protected by woven palm fronds. Inside are the dried bundles. From earlier this season, grain already processed, stored in thick clay jars, sealed with mud and straw. You run your fingers along the side of one jar, testing for cracks. All seems well. You explain to your son the importance of storage, how moisture is the enemy, how rats must be kept out, how one bad seal can spoil a month of work. He nods again, serious now, as he begins to understand that farming doesn't end at harvest. It continues in jars, in careful checks, in quiet responsibility. Afterward, you take a break beneath the fig tree where your wife has laid out a small cloth with snacks, onions, cheese, 2 figs split in half. She joins you, wiping her hands on her apron, and sits cross-legged in the shade. Your daughter follows, close behind, holding a cup of water, her face red from helping grind grain. You eat together, each bite a pause in the day. Your daughter offers you the water. It's warm but sweet. You thank her and she beams. Your wife leans against your shoulder, and for a while no one speaks. The tree above sways gently in the breeze, casting dappled shadows that move like thoughts across the ground. Historians rarely describe this part the way time folds during these shared moments. They write about work, about ritual, about war and tax, but they often miss the stillness, the slowness, the sacred quiet of a family resting in the shade, chewing onions, listening to the wind move the leaves. Later, you return to the field to clean tools. The blade of your hoe is chipped again. You take a whetstone and begin sharpening it. Slowly, your thumb testing the edge every few passes. Your son brings the smaller hoe he started using, and you show him how to maintain its curve. A tool that's loved lasts longer, you tell him. He nods. He's heard it before, but today he's listening. The goats bleat in the distance, nothing urgent, just the end-of-day restlessness. Your daughter goes to check their pen returns with a smile. They're just bored, she says. Like us. You laugh and tell her boredom is the root of invention. She raises an eyebrow. That's not true. You raise one back. It is if you make it true. As the light begins to lower, the village begins its slow contraction, gathering inwards. People return from the riverbanks, from the outer plots, from the hills. Smoke rises from cook fires. Voices soften. You return to the house and help your wife prepare the evening meal. She kneads dough while you grind herbs. Your daughter chops onions, sniffling but refusing help. Your son carries water in from the canal, careful not to spill a drop. The baby, barely walking now, clutches a reed toy and babbles at the dog, who seems to understand everything. The stew simmers slowly. You stir it clockwise, then counterclockwise, an old habit meant to balance the taste. Your wife watches with amusement. Still superstitious, she asks. Still hopeful, you reply. As the food cooks, you step outside to check the canal one last time. The gate is holding. The water level is steady. You pause and watch the current. A frog swims past unhurried. A dragonfly hovers, then zips away. The sun, now low, glints off the surface in tiny golden sparks. You stand there for a long time, not because you're worried, but because this is your pause, your closing of the loop, your way of saying, we made it through another day. You hear your wife calling your name gently like a song. Dinner is ready. You turn and walk back to your home, the dog padding along beside you. The fig tree's shadow now stretches across the path like a blanket laid out for sleep. You step over it, feeling the shift in temperature as the sky turns from gold to lavender. At the threshold, you stop. Look back. The field is quiet now, the barley standing tall in the last light, whispering secrets to the breeze. You nod once, then step inside. The door closes behind you, not with a bang, but with a soft click. Another day. In the life of a Nile farmer, complete, not finished, never finished. The fire, the story, and the circle of dust. Night has returned, not in a rush, not with thunder, but like a grandmother entering the room, quiet and certain, folding the day gently behind her. Your family sits outside now, gathered around the small clay fire pit near the tamarisk tree. The pot of stew has been scraped clean. The bread is gone.
Even the goats are still there, restless shifting, settled by the dark. The air is cooler. You feel it on your arms and cheeks. The dust has calmed. The sky is scattered with stars, not just dots of light, but constellations, shapes you've known since you were a child. There's Sa again, your familiar friend. His belt is clear tonight, even the faintest star winking through the dark. You lean back, supporting yourself on your elbows, your legs stretched out in front of you. Beside you, your son mimics your posture. Your wife wraps a shawl around her shoulders. Your daughter chews on a date pit, staring into the fire. The baby sleeps nearby, bundled like a warm whisper.
This is the time for stories. You don't begin with an announcement, you simply speak. There was once a man, you say, who planted barley, but forgot to ask the river for permission. Your son grins. He's heard this one before. The river let him sow, you continue. Let him water, let him weed. But on harvest day, the river rose and carried all the barley away. Your daughter interrupts, laughing, because he was greedy. No, you say, tapping your finger to the ground, because he was forgetful. The river doesn't punish greed, it punishes disrespect. They nod. The fire crackles. A frog chirps from somewhere behind the goats. You tell another story, this one about a woman who wove a blanket from reeds, and when she laid it over herself to sleep, she dreamed every dream that would ever be dreamed. Your children go quiet. Even the dog lies still, ears twitching slightly with every word. Historians rarely include these tales in their accounts. They consider them folklore, superstition, children's entertainment. But here under the stars, you know better. These stories carry what the ledgers never will, what it feels like to live close to the earth, to watch the sky, for time to understand that water and wind and whispering grain have their own language. You pass the talking to your wife, who shares a short tale about a goat who wanted to be a bird. She tells it with her hands mimicking wings, wobbly hooves, a goat's exaggerated frown. Your daughter giggles, even you chuckle. Then your son, emboldened, adds his own story, one he's made up, about a frog who steals the moon's reflection and keeps it in a jar. It doesn't make much sense, but it doesn't need to. You tell him it's the best story you've heard all week. He beams like he owns the moon now. Your neighbor passes by on the road and waves. You wave back. He doesn't stop, but his presence is part of this moment too. He's part of the village, the rhythm, the unseen circle that expands beyond your firelight but holds you all. As the stories slow, you poke the coals with a stick, sending a few tiny sparks upward. They float for a heartbeat before disappearing into the dark. You watch them go. Time for sleep, your wife says softly, and the children rise without protest. Your son carries the baby. Your daughter stacks the bowls and sets them by the water jar. You stay behind just a little longer alone with the fire. You close your eyes. In the silence, you hear everything, the low hiss of cooling embers, the sigh of the tamarisk leaves, the creak of the house beams settling, your own breath. This is history too, you think. Not the kind they carve in stone, but the kind carried in calloused hands and quiet hearts. You rise, carry the final burning stick to the ash bowl, and set it gently down. Inside, the children are already settled. Your wife is braiding her hair by dim lamplight. You lie beside her, and she lays a hand on your chest for a moment. A silent thank you. You answer it with a gentle touch to her wrist. Then the lamp goes out. In the dark, your mind drifts.
You remember your father's stories, your mother's hands, the first time you held a newborn goat and felt how delicate life could be. You remember the year the barley nearly failed and how the village pulled together like threads in a worn cloak. You remember a moment like this 1 year ago when your own father sat outside alone after dinner just listening. Maybe your son will remember this night. Maybe he won't. But it doesn't matter. The fire was real. The frog story was real. The laughter, the dust, the coolness of the earth beneath your legs real. The truth is not in the records. The truth is in the moments no one writes down. You breathe deeply. Your body is tired, but not the bad kind of tired. This is the earned kind, the kind that makes sleep feel like a gift. Outside, the stars continue their slow wheel. The goats murmur once, then fall still. And the fire, though quiet, now leaves its warmth behind. The temple, the offering, and the silent exchange. You wake again before the world does, before birds stretch their wings, before your wife stirs, before the shadows remember to lengthen. The air inside the house is heavy with sleep. It clings to your skin like linen left damp overnight. You sit up slowly, muscles still stiff from the day before, but not unwilling. There's something different about today. It's a temple day. Not the grand procession kind, not the kind with drumming and chants. This is quieter, simpler, but no less sacred. You gather 12 stalks of barley from the storage basket, still green, firm, unspoiled. You wrap them carefully in a strip of cloth and tie the bundle with a palm cord. This offering isn't required by law. There is no scribe to record it, no official to receive it. But you do it anyway, like your father did and his before him. The gods don't need reminders, you do. You slip out without waking the others. The sky is pale and promise-colored. The path is familiar even in the dim. You pass the fig tree, nod to the canal, glance once at your barley field, then continue along the edge of the village to the small stone shrine built into a hillside bend. It's not grand, just a weathered statue, a slab of rock, a dish for offerings. But it's enough. Someone's already been here. You see another bundle already placed, a handful of chickpeas, some dried garlic, a small carved frog. Offerings vary. Yours is barley. It always is. You kneel on the smooth patch of dirt before the shrine, unroll your cloth, and place your bundle gently beside the others. You straighten the stalks, press your fingers against the stone, and whisper your words. You don't recite anything written, but there is no script. Just the thoughts that rise in your throat and fall into the silence. For the water, for the grain, for the strength in my back, for the sleep that came easily. You pause for the day that waits. You finish with a touch to your lips, then to the stone, a kiss shared between flesh and faith. Historians often dismiss these shrines as folk practice a way for poor villagers to imitate the temple elite, but they miss the point. This is not imitation. This is intimacy. The big temples pray for the nation. You pray for your goats, your roof, your daughter's cough. And you believe, if not in being heard, then at least in being witnessed. You remain there for a few minutes longer, head bowed not out of duty, but out of peace. Then you rise, brush the dust from your knees, and make your way back. The sun is climbing now, slowly peeling gold across the tops of the palm trees. Your dog meets you at the gate tail, wagging with sleepy satisfaction. Your daughter waves from the house, already dressed, already humming. You re-enter the home,
Your wife has prepared breakfast bread, some leftover stew, warmed on the hearth in a bowl of fresh water. You sit and eat wordless but close. The children chatter softly. Your son has fashioned a toy boat from reeds and clay and insists it can cross the entire canal. You nod. Let's test it later. After breakfast, the work resumes, but the pace is slower. On temple days, even the barley seems to sigh with less urgency. You focus on small things, repairing a torn basket, trimming goat hooves, collecting fig leaves for feed. Midday finds you resting again in the shade. Not because you're exhausted, but because you want to sit beside your family while the sun holds court above. Your wife braids your daughter's hair. Your son places stones in a row, pretending they're the buildings of a grand city. You lie back on the mat and stare at the clouds. One of them looks like a lion. You point it out. Your wife says it looks like a shoe. Your son sees a dragon. No one argues. All interpretations are welcome. Later, your neighbor visits. He brings a clay pot of honey as thanks for helping him with his ox cart last week. You offer him a seat, and the two of you talk about nothing for a long time, the quality of the mud this year, a beetle infestation in the storage granary, a rumor about a new priest being assigned to the regional temple. You both shrug. Life continues. As the sun begins to dip, you return to the field for one last walk. The barley rustles. The water channels sing. You pause at the canal's bend and watch as your son launches his toy boat. It floats. He cheers. You smile. You place a small stone on the path near the field, a marker not for direction but for presence. A way of saying I was here today. I came. I cared. Back at the house, your wife prepares the evening meal. Your daughter recites a story she learned from a visiting trader. Your son retells the saga of his boat, now a hero of the Nile. You listen, laugh, nod, and occasionally correct a detail. Not to change the story, but to keep it yours. After dinner, you all step outside one more time. The moon has risen, the air is soft and cool. You sit together wrapped in silence and each other's company. The dog lies at your feet. A moth flutters near the lamp. The night is full but not heavy. You think of your father again, of the days you watched him walk to the shrine, of how he whispered into the stone and never told you what he said. Now you understand. Not the words, but the need to speak them. Tomorrow will bring more work, more dust, more barley, but tonight you have the stars and the memory of a stone that still remembers your touch, the return of dust and the weight of memory. The next day begins with wind. It's not a strong wind, not at first, just a whisper at the edge of your ear, a tug at your tunic as you move toward the canal. But it carries something dust, the kind that rises without warning, dances in tight spirals, and settles into every crack. You taste it on your tongue before you see it. Dry, metallic, older than memory. It reminds you of the months when the Nile draws back too far, when the ground begins to harden and the air turns brittle. You fetch water early today before the jars become warm. Your son follows you, dragging his reed basket behind him, half asleep. At the canal, the water runs thinner than yesterday. Not alarmingly low, but enough to make you take notice. You fill the jar, slowly, not wanting to disturb the silt. On the way back, the wind grows stronger. It lifts the corner of your shawl and throws a handful of dry leaves across your path. You glance toward the horizon. The palm trees bend slightly, their fronds hissing. The fields murmur. Something is shifting. Historians often describe Egypt as stable, predictable, built around the cycle of the Nile. But they forget the smaller shifts, the unrecorded years when the water came too late or not at all, the sudden illnesses, the days when the wind refused to stop blowing. At home, your wife secures the reed mats against the windows. Your daughter brings in the goats early. The dog curls under the bench nose tucked beneath his tail. Dust thickens the air, blunting sound. The world feels muffled, half-formed. You retreat to the inner room where the walls are thickest and the wind least cruel. Your wife hands you a bowl of barley paste with honey. You eat slowly, the sweetness grounding you. Across the room, your son draws shapes in the dust on the floor, little spirals and suns. He hums softly, inventing a song. The storm isn't violent, just persistent. It presses against the day, changing its shape. You cannot work in the field like this. The barley will hold for one afternoon. The fences will wait. The ditch can be cleared tomorrow. You take the unexpected gift of time and sit with your son watching his patterns grow. You ask him what they mean and he says, they're maps to the past. You blink. And where do they go? He shrugs. Back to the first goat. You laugh. It echoes strangely in the still air. Later you open one of the storage jars to check the grain. It's fine, no mold, no weevils. But you stir it anyway. Let your fingers sift through the kernels. There's something calming in the repetition. A rhythm within a rhythm. You think about your father, about the year the wind blew for 3 days straight. You remember the way he sat by the fire, braiding twine for no reason other than to keep his hands moving. If you can't till he said, tie. You start to braid a bit of spare reed now, and the motion soothes you. By evening, the wind begins to fade. It leaves behind grit on every surface, your face, your tools, your food. But it also leaves behind a stillness, like breath held too long finally released. Your wife lights the evening lamp early. Its glow is faint at first, but soon the room is gold, washed, cozy. You clean your hands and sit on the floor beside the hearth. The meal tonight is simple: dried fish, bread, pickled vegetables. Enough. Afterward, you all gather near the tamarisk tree. The dust has settled. The air smells of earth and ash and something green. The stars peek through again, timid at first, then bold. You lie on your back, your son curled against your arm. Your daughter brings out a small flute and plays a single looping melody. Your wife begins a story, one you haven't heard in years, about a man who fell in love with a shadow. She tells it slowly, letting the pauses stretch long between sentences. The story is sad but not painful. You listen not just to her words, but to her voice, the timbre of it, the steadiness. The dog rolls onto his back, exposing his belly. The baby snores gently. A neighbor passes and nods. You nod back. Later in the quiet that follows, you return to the field, not for work, but to see it. You walk the rows with a lantern in hand. The barley stands dust-coated but upright. You kneel, brush off one stalk, hold it up to the light. It gleams faintly proud. You speak aloud to the dark. You're stronger than you look. It's unclear whether you mean the plant or yourself. Maybe both. You return home tired but not worn. You rinse your face, dry your hands, and climb onto your mat. Your wife joins you moments later, her breath warm against your shoulder. You close your eyes, and the dust of the day finally settles inside you, not as burden, but as memory.
Harvest signs and the whisper of readiness. The dust storm is gone by morning as if it were never there. Only the film it left on your tools, your floor, and your throat remains to prove its passing. The air smells cleaner now, cleansed not by rain but by endurance. You step outside just as the sky begins to warm. The village is quieter than usual, slowed from yesterday's stillness. People move with caution, brushing dust from their shoulders and carefully rinsing jars. You see your neighbor emptying his goat pen of grit. You nod in quiet sympathy. Your field waits, and this morning you notice something new. The barley is taller. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough that the tips of the stalks have begun to nod under their own weight. Enough that the green has softened into a faint sheen of gold. You walk the edge slowly, eyes scanning for patterns. You feel it in your stomach, the hum of readiness. Harvest is not today, but it is coming. You kneel at the edge of the western row and take a stalk between your fingers. The grains are firm packed. You bite one gently. It crunches dry and sweet. You nod mostly to yourself. You return home to fetch your wife. This part is tradition. She walks the rows beside you, inspecting the barley with practiced calm. She doesn't speak for a long while. Then 3 more days. You smile. You knew she'd say that. She's always right. Later, you gather your family and begin preparing. You sharpen blades, soak baskets, fetch extra rope from the shed. Your daughter gathers reeds and begins weaving new ties. Your son carries empty jars to the storage hut, whistling a song that repeats endlessly, but somehow never annoys you. Historians write about the harvest as a logistical feat measured in yield, in manpower, in tax records. But for you, it is a heartbeat, a pulse that has been growing all season. Each drop of sweat, each whisper to the soil, each glance at the sky, it all leads here. By midday, the sun is high again, but its light feels different. There is no dread in it now, no burden, only clarity. You sit in the shade and watch your son chase chickens, your daughter singing to the goats. Your wife kneels nearby, rubbing oil into a worn blade. Her hands move slowly, methodically. You watch her a moment longer than usual. In the afternoon, your neighbor visits with a question about his storage pit. You walk with him, inspect the cracks along its base. Dry it slower, you say. Wrap the outside first. He nods, scribbles something into the dust with a stick. Before leaving, he offers a gift, 3 dried fish and a small jar of date syrup. For the harvest gods, he says. You chuckle but accept it. You return to the house and begin sorting the old baskets. Some will need patching. Others must be replaced entirely. Your wife joins you with fresh palm fronds. You weave together in silence, hands moving in rhythm. When one basket is done, you both admire it. Not because it's beautiful, but because it's ready. By sunset, everything is arranged. The tools are set. The water jars are filled. The storage room is swept clean. You even found time to adjust the prayer flag at the small altar. It now flutters gently in the breeze, soft and frayed. As darkness creeps in, you gather the children and tell them a story you haven't told in years. The one about the first harvest, the one where barley sang before being cut, where gods danced in the fields. They listen quietly, wide-eyed. Even your daughter, who usually interrupts with questions, remains silent. Your wife sits beside you, eyes half closed, listening not just to the story, but to the rhythm of the evening. When the tale ends, no one says anything. There's no need. The air is heavy with something that isn't quite excitement, but something close. Reverence, perhaps. You sleep that night more lightly than usual. Not from worry, but from anticipation. Your body knows what is coming. Your dreams are scattered in golden fields, bending blades, singing dust, swirling into the shape of hands. You wake before dawn, of course. You rise, dress, and step into the cool. The stars are fading. The sky is empty and expectant. You do not touch the field yet, not until the third day, but you walk its edge again. You whisper a quiet greeting. You thank the river, the soil, the sun. You return home and find your wife already heating water. She glances at you and says, "Only it will be good." You believe her. The first cut and the music of the blade. 3 days pass like breath. Each one is filled with preparation, mending, cleaning, gathering. But none of it feels rushed. You and your family move through the hours as though you've practiced this choreography 100 times. And you have. Then finally it's time. You wake before the stars are gone. The world is still dark, but not silent. You can hear the whispers of other farmers stirring. The village feels like it's holding its breath. You rise, dress, and tie a fresh cloth around your forehead. Your wife hands you a small packet of salt, a tradition passed from her grandmother. "For luck," she says. And sweat. You tuck it into your belt. The sky begins to shift gray, becoming gold. You walk to the field with your eldest son beside you, a sickle in your hand. The blade has been sharpened until it shines. You run your thumb gently across its curve. It hums with readiness. The barley stands tall, proud, golden, now swaying slightly in the early breeze. It feels like a friend you haven't seen in months. You pause at the edge and place your hand over your heart. "Thank you," you say. It is not for anyone else to hear. Then you step forward, crouch low, and begin. The first cut is sacred. Your blade moves through the stalks with a soft hiss, a whisper, not a scream. The barley falls into your hand like it was waiting for you. Your son watches closely. He kneels beside you, mimics the motion. You guide him once, twice. Then let him continue. His first few cuts are clumsy but careful. He is learning. Your wife and daughter arrive with baskets. They begin gathering the cut grain, binding it with reed ties, stacking the bundles beneath the fig tree. The baby watches from a shaded mat, clapping now and then, for reasons known only to her. This is not a race. This is a ritual, a rhythm. Bend, cut, gather, step, wipe, lift. The sun rises higher. The work grows harder. Sweat pools along your brow, trickles down your back. But you do not stop. The world narrows to the field, the blade, the breath. Other farmers pass by on the path, offering nods, blessings, jokes. May your back bend but not break, one calls. You grin and return the gesture. And may your bundles stand taller than your pride. Historians tally harvests in shekels and bushels, in tax scrolls and temple records. But they forget the music of it, the sound of blades slicing through dry stems, the laughter between workers, the song someone starts when the sun gets too heavy. Around midday, you pause for water. Your wife hands you a cup, her eyes scanning your face. She knows this pace. She feels it in her own bones. She wipes a smear of dirt from your cheek with her sleeve. Your son rests beneath the tree, drinking from a gourd. His hands are blistered already, but he says nothing. He is proud. The second half of the field awaits. You rise and return.
Your legs burn, your arms ache. But the barley falls more easily now. The rows begin to shrink. The bundles grow tall. By late afternoon, the work has slowed. The sun stretches long shadows across the furrows. You gather the final bundle, tie it, and lift it with both hands. Your daughter claps. Your wife sighs in quiet satisfaction. Even the dog wags his tail. You carry the last sheaf to the shade and lay it gently atop the others. 39 bundles in total. A good number, strong, enough. The family gathers. You all sit on the ground surrounded by the fruits of your labor. Dust clings to your legs, your arms, your lashes, but your heart is clean, steady. Someone in the distance begins to drum, slow rhythmic, calling the day to a close. Your son speaks first. "We did it," he says, voice quiet. You nod. "We did." Dinner is simple. Bread, lentils, a bit of fish. But it tastes different. Everything does after harvest. As the stars rise, you return to the field one last time. Not to work, just to look. The stalks are gone. The earth is bare. But it is not empty. You kneel, place your hand on the soil, and close your eyes. "Thank you," you whisper again. This is not the end. Tomorrow there will be threshing, winnowing, storage. The work continues. But for tonight, you let it be complete. You return home. Your wife is already inside, rocking the baby. Your daughter sleeps with one arm draped over a pillow made of straw. Your son lies near the door, curled beside the dog. You step over them, gently remove your belt, set your blade on the shelf. You lie down. The mat is cool, the night is quiet, and your body, sore and full, slips into sleep like it has known this day forever. The festival of grain and the weightless dance. The next morning the village is brighter than usual. Not in sunlight, though the sun shines clear. Not in wind, though the breeze carries the faint scent of figs and clay and hope. But in mood, in movement, in the unspoken pulse that travels from house to house, neighbor to neighbor. It is the festival of grain. There is no fixed name for it. No date on the calendar. It happens when the harvest is in, when the jars are full enough, when the fields have sighed in relief. Then and only then do the people gather to give thanks. You dress in your best tunic, clean pressed and faintly sweet from the storage basket of herbs it rested in all season. Your wife braids her hair, wrapping it with a faded strip of dyed linen passed down from her grandmother. Your daughter wears a necklace made of clay beads she molded herself. Your son insists on carrying the ceremonial basket, woven freshly this year, filled with the first handfuls of barley from your own plot. You walk together slowly toward the clearing near the old sycamore tree, the one with roots thick enough to sit on, with shade generous enough to cover a crowd. Along the way, more families join the path. Old men, young mothers, boys with bundles of reeds, girls with tiny jars of oil. Even the goats are adorned with bells, tied loosely around their necks, and bits of cloth hanging like streamers from their horns. You arrive at the clearing where others have already begun to arrange the offerings. There's a flat stone table near the center, cracked down the middle but held together with small prayers. Upon it lie bundles of grain jars of beer cakes sweetened with honey and lotus seeds, amulets shaped like ears of wheat, and painted stones with glyphs etched into their surface. You add your offering, quietly pressing your fingers to the edge of the table for a moment, then stepping back. The priest arrives not from a temple, not robed in gold or dripping in incense, but in a clean tunic and with hands that have also cut barley. He raises his arms once, then lowers them. The crowd quiets. He speaks a few words about water and labor and gratitude. He names the gods softly: Renenutet, goddess of grain; Geb, lord of the earth; and Maat, the balance that holds everything together. He asks for protection through the dry months. He asks for rest for tired hands. He thanks the Nile. There is no thunder, no miracles, no booming voice from the sky. Just the wind picking up slightly, moving the reed streamers in long, slow ripples. Then someone begins to drum. It's a low, steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Others join in, clapping, tapping stones, slapping thighs. The music grows, but never fast. Just enough to stir feet into motion. The children dance first in wide circles, their movements awkward but joyful. Your daughter twirls arms, extended eyes closed. Your son shuffles side to side, serious, with concentration. Your wife laughs and joins them, her feet light on the dry ground. You watch for a while, then rise. The dance isn't about grace, it isn't about skill. It's about motion, about remembering that your body is more than a tool, that it can move for joy, for praise, for no reason at all. You join the circle, letting the rhythm guide your steps. You move slower than your son, less elegant than your wife, but with a steadiness that anchors the beat. Around you, others follow. Elders with bent backs sway gently. Young men leap, high arms raised. A blind man claps in time. A boy drags a stick along a clay jar to create a scratchy beat that somehow fits. Historians rarely write about this. They catalog tools and temples and taxes, but not this the moment when a village, having labored and endured, decides to move together, to pulse like a single body, to thank the soil not with words but with footsteps. The sun climbs higher, casting shadows that dance with you. The wind carries away your sweat. You forget your sore shoulders, your calloused palms. You forget your name. You are only breath, only motion, only song. After a time, the music softens. The drums slow. The dancing fades into laughter and quiet. People sit on the ground, panting, smiling. You sit too, your chest rising and falling like the wind-washed canal. Someone passes out dried figs and cool water. Your daughter falls asleep in your lap, your son at your side, tracing shapes in the dirt. You watch the sky. You thank it without speaking. Later, the priest returns. He lifts one bundle of barley from the altar and places it on the earth. A symbolic replanting, a promise to begin again. You rise, take your family's offering, the barley your son carried, and scatter it a few grains at a time across the soil. Some land gently, others are caught by the breeze. They will not grow. That's not the point. The point is to let go. The point is to remember that everything given must someday return. You help clear the offerings. You sweep the altar with a reed broom. You nod to neighbors. You walk home. At the threshold of your home, you stop. You turn, look once more at the path you walked, the tree that shaded you, the field that waits. Your wife touches your shoulder. You step inside. Rest, remembrance, and the river's lullaby. The sun dips lower behind the palms, casting everything in long lines and softened gold. You sit on the worn stone at the edge of your field, not to work, not to inspect, but to simply be. The air is still warm, but it no longer presses. It exhales. You do too. Behind you, the village returns to its twilight rituals. You hear the rhythmic pounding of a mortar, the rustle of grain being poured, the laughter of a child who doesn't yet understand fatigue.
From somewhere comes the faint tune of a reed flute. Someone is practicing or remembering. You dig your fingers gently into the soil. It's dry at the surface but moist beneath. The kind of moisture that means the land is still listening, that it's not done yet. Your wife approaches and sits beside you. She doesn't speak. She just leans in, slightly shoulder to shoulder. Her hair smells like smoke and figs. She presses a fig into your palm and you bite into it. Sweet, earthy, familiar. You hand her the rest. She finishes it without ceremony. In front of you, the barley field glows cut clean. Now the soil bare, but not empty. There's something about a harvested field that holds dignity. Not the pride of beginnings nor the anxiety of growth, but the calm of completion. It reminds you of your father's hands, the day he stopped farming. Not weak, not resigned, but ready. You speak quietly, not really expecting a reply. He would have liked this year. Your wife nods, watching the horizon. The light fades further. The sky slips toward deep indigo, and the stars emerge one by one like careful dancers. The first to appear is always Sa. You smile. Of course it's him. You think about how many nights you've sat like this and how many more might come. You wonder whether your son will one day sit here after you're gone and remember the weight of the sickle, the rhythm of your footsteps. You wonder whether he'll whisper to the grain like you do, whether he'll find comfort in soil and silence. Historians chase records, tablets, names etched in stone. But here nothing is carved, nothing is saved. And still it endures. It lives in the worn path from your door to the canal, in the basket handle smoothed by generations, in the way your wife cuts onions the same way her mother did, in the way your daughter hums when she weaves. You rise slowly and brush the dust from your hands. Your knees crack and your wife chuckles softly. You chuckle too. You're getting older, but the land is kind to those who remember it. You return to the house together. The children are already inside. Your son is polishing the blade without being asked. Your daughter sets a jug of water on the table. The baby sleeps in a corner, her breath soft as flour dust. You sit at the edge of the hearth. Your wife brings a lamp and places it near your feet. Its light is gentle, almost shy, the kind of light that doesn't chase away the dark but shares space with it. Dinner is small tonight, flatbread and lentils again. But you eat slowly, tasting every flavor. The salt, the earth, the hours it took to grow and cook. It is enough, more than enough. Afterward, your family gathers in the courtyard one last time. You lie on your back, your wife at your side, your son tracing constellations with a stick in the dust. Your daughter tells a new version of the frog and moon story. This one ends with the frog, leaping so high, he disappears. Your wife raises her eyebrows, better ending, she admits. You smile and close your eyes. The night around you hums, not with noise, but with presence. The Nile just beyond the last row of homes moves slowly like it knows the day is done. You imagine it whispering lullabies to the reeds, to the fish, to the sleeping gods. You breathe in through your nose. The air smells like dust, oil fig skin, sweat, and river. You exhale. Let it all go. The stars thicken. The moon rises. Your daughter's voice trails off into silence. The dog sighs. You sit up once more, look around. The house, the mat, the field, your family, your gods, your hands. All here, still here. And you whisper for the last time tonight to the land itself. Thank you, the fire is out. The tools are hung. The last child has yawned herself to sleep. You sit on the edge of your mat back, resting against the wall, eyes drifting closed, then fluttering open again. Not out of worry, but out of reverence for this final stillness. The kind of quiet that only comes after everything is done. The barley has been cut, the grain jar filled, the prayers spoken, the stories shared. Nothing in this moment demands anything from you. Not the land, not your children, not even the gods.
You inhale long and deep, drawing the cool night into your chest, then letting it go. Slowly, completely. Your body aches in places you don't name, but it's the ache of honest labor, the ache of having shown up to every hour the day asked of you. You have earned this silence. Around you, the village breathes as one, a mother humming through a dream, a dog twitching in his sleep, the wind slipping between reed walls with a song so low it feels like memory. And beyond that, the river, your oldest companion, singing in a voice as old as time. You lie back. Let the night cover you. Let the stars blink their soft affirmations. Let the soil rest. You've done enough. You are enough. You sleep